My radiant one, something is stirring in the unseen realm, and Archangel Michael is pressing this message into your spirit with an urgency that cannot be ignored. The title you just opened, a family member is about to die tragically, and you have the power to stop it. Open immediately. It's not a coincidence, not a random tap, not a mindless scroll. It is a spiritual interception, a divine alarm, a heavenly intervention breaking into your ordinary moment. Archangel Michael stands beside you right now, his sword blazing with holy light, whispering one truth. You are being warned because you are chosen to prevent what the enemy has planned. Listen closely, because what I am about to reveal is the kind of message that visits a person only once in a lifetime. And if they ignore it, they never understand why everything suddenly shifted around them. But you were guided here because heaven refuses to let darkness write the next chapter of your family. There is a disturbance around someone connected to your bloodline, a spiritual shadow that has been circling them silently, waiting for the moment of weakness, waiting for the moment when no one is watching. But Archangel Michael has stepped forward to expose it before it manifests. He is showing me an energy of exhaustion around this family member, someone who has been carrying more than they speak about, someone who has been ignoring signs that something is wrong. Their spirit is tired, their path is dimming, and heaven is sounding an alarm through you. Yes, through you. Because in realms beyond your eyesight, things shift not through chance but through chosen vessels. And today, you are that vessel. But here is the shocking truth: the tragic ending that has been forming around them is not fixed. It is not sealed. It is not unstoppable. Heaven is revealing it because you have the power to disrupt it, to redirect it, to break the cycle before it becomes reality. Archangel Michael says, warning is mercy, and mercy is a doorway to miracles. Do you feel that pull in your chest right now? A heaviness, that sudden awareness. It is not fear. It is discernment waking up. It is the spirit inside you recognizing that a message meant for someone else would never have found you, but a message meant for your household will always locate you at the perfect divine second. The enemy wants you to think this is just a video. Heaven wants you to realize this is a rescue assignment. And Michael keeps repeating this one phrase: the danger is near, but the intervention has already begun. Let me take you deeper. Something happened recently within your family. A disagreement, a moment of silence, a strain that created distance. And because of that distance, someone is spiritually uncovered. They are vulnerable to attacks that normally would not touch them, because unity is a shield and disconnection is an open door. But the universe has decided to close that door, and it is choosing you to do it. You may not know which family member this refers to yet, but as you continue listening, clarity will rise within you like a sunrise. Their face will come into your mind unexpectedly. A situation will connect in your spirit. A memory will surface. And when it does, you will know without doubt. This is the one heaven is talking about. Archangel Michael says this person hath been walking through a path of silent warfare, mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. The threat around them is not an accident waiting to happen. It is an attack that was formed against them. But it will not prosper, because the moment you opened this message, the chain began to break. You are not supposed to scroll away from this. You are not supposed to miss this timing. That is why the title felt like it grabbed your soul. Because heaven knows that if you did not see this warning in time, the enemy's plan could have advanced unchecked. But now Archangel Michael has stepped into the middle of the timeline and ripped it open to reveal what must be stopped. My beloved, this is where your role begins. Not in fear, not in panic, but in awareness, the first key to divine prevention. Michael says, When the chosen one becomes aware, the darkness loses its power. And this is only the beginning. The next revelation is heavier, deeper, and more targeted than what you've heard so far. What Michael is about to show next will point directly at the spiritual root of this looming tragedy and the exact shift that can prevent it. Before you move forward, breathe. You will want your spirit calm for what comes next. Before you scroll away, hear this clearly. The next part uncovers the breaking point of the attack. Missing it means missing the very instruction that reverses the danger. Hold on, because the revelation ahead is the turning point. Type "I break this in my bloodline" in the comments if this message is stirring your spirit. Lesson code 144 is now released over your family. Beloved listener of the unseen, as you step deeper into this revelation, Archangel Michael moves closer, his presence sharpening the atmosphere around you. The warning released in the previous moment was not meant to stir fear but to awaken your inner authority. Now, he begins to peel back the layers hiding the spiritual source of this looming tragedy. What you are about to hear is not common knowledge. It is not something the natural world could ever reveal. It is a truth only heaven can disclose, and it is being given to you because you are the only one in your family who is spiritually awake enough to hear it. Michael shows me an image of a thread, thin, fragile, stretched too tight. This thread represents the life of the family member in danger. Their energy has been pulled in too many directions. Their emotions have been worn thin. Their hope has been stretched to its limit, and the enemy has tried to use that weakness as an entry point. What appears on the surface as stress, fatigue, bad luck, or a streak of misfortune is actually a deeper spiritual entanglement. Something attached to their path long before they realized it. Something that has been whispering discouragement, magnifying mistakes, and pushing them toward a moment of collapse. But here is the powerful truth. Archangel Michael is exposing this threat not to frighten you, but to empower you. To reveal that this danger is not random, and therefore, it is not unstoppable. It can be intercepted. It can be cut off. It can be reversed. The moment you receive the warning, the enemy's timeline began to unravel. And now, as you listen, heaven is revealing the blueprint of what needs to be undone. Michael says this: the enemy works in shadows, but when light touches the shadows, they lose their strength. This family member has been walking in dimness, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. They have felt alone even when surrounded by people. They have carried burdens silently because they do not want to worry others. They have smiled on the outside while hiding a growing heaviness inside. And the enemy has mistaken their silence for surrender. But what the enemy did not expect was your awakening. The heavens did not allow you to come across this message by mistake. You were chosen as the breaker, the intercessor, the shield. Michael shows me flashes, a recent moment when this person looked exhausted but said nothing. A decision they made quietly that shifted their path. A heaviness in their chest or mind that they pushed aside because they felt they had no choice. Something in their life has been collapsing, not all at once, but piece by piece, and no one noticed except the spiritual realm. That is why the angelic message had to reach you. You were the open vessel, the one whose spirit is sensitive enough to feel the tremor. The tragedy forming around them is not a single event. It is a buildup of spiritual pressure. It could manifest as an accident, an impulsive decision, a health crisis, or a sudden emotional breaking point. But Michael keeps repeating, it is preventable. It is preventable. It is preventable. He is adamant that the danger is real, but the outcome is not fixed. Heaven with his threats only when heaven has already prepared a way of escape. You may feel a stirring of recognition right now. A name may be rising in your conscience. A face may be coming forward. Do not ignore that. The revelation always begins with a whisper. Soon, that whisper will become clarity, and clarity will become a divine instruction. Michael is showing me that this family member has been spiritually targeted not because they are weak, but because they are destined for something impactful. The enemy attacks what carries purpose. The enemy strikes what carries influence. The enemy pressures what carries potential. And sometimes, those with the brightest destinies endure the darkest battles until someone with spiritual sight steps in for them. That someone, in this moment, is you. But take this in deeply. Your simple awareness has already shifted the atmosphere around them. The moment you heard the warning, the destructive energy surrounding them began to lose stability. The angels assigned to your bloodline have been activated. The shield around your family is strengthening. But you cannot stop here, because Michael says the next revelation will show you the exact spiritual crack that allowed this threat to form. And once that crack is sealed, the danger will collapse completely. The enemy is trying to accelerate the timeline of this tragedy because he senses that someone in the family is about to rise. But heaven is intercepting that attempt. You are being aligned with the divine timing that exposes darkness before it takes root. There is nothing accidental about this moment. You were meant to hear this. You were appointed to stand in the gap. Your attention right now is part of heaven's intervention plan. Michael's final message for this part is both sobering and empowering. Do not fear what is revealed. Fear only what remains hidden. And nothing hidden will stay hidden from you any longer. The next unfolding is the key turning point, the moment everything becomes unmistakably clear. Before you move forward, pause for one breath. The revelation ahead carries even greater weight, and you will want your spirit steady. And remember, what comes next will expose the exact spiritual doorway the enemy used. Without understanding that, the miracle of prevention cannot complete its work. Hold on, because the unveiling is about to sharpen sharply. Type "I stand" as their shield in the comments if your spirit is awake to this calling. Blessing code 229 is now released over your household. Chosen guardian of your bloodline. As we step into this next revelation, Archangel Michael intensifies his presence, and the atmosphere around you becomes sharper, clearer, almost electrically alive. This is the moment where mystery begins to form into meaning. The spiritual crack that allowed danger to slip toward your family is ready to be exposed, and once you understand it, its power over your loved one will begin to dissolve. Heaven does not reveal origins unless heaven intends to bring correction, restoration, and protection. And Michael stands ready to reveal exactly what has been hidden in the shadows. There is a deep spiritual wound in your family line, something that occurred either recently or in a past season, that opened a doorway of vulnerability. It is not always obvious in the physical world. Sometimes it appears as miscommunication, sometimes as emotional distance, sometimes as an unspoken tension that everyone feels but no one addresses. In this case, the wound has produced a quiet fracture, and the enemy has been using that fracture as a spiritual entry point. Michael shows me an image, a house with a single window left unlocked. The rest of the home is sealed tight, secured, guarded, but that one small window remains slightly open. That opening represents an unresolved issue within the family. Something someone did not let go. Something someone did not forgive. Something someone spoke in anger or held in their heart too long. And although life went on, the spiritual residue remained. Heaven is revealing that the danger forming around your family member is connected to this emotional or spiritual rupture. It weakened their covering. It weakened their clarity. It weakened their sense of direction. A person who feels unsupported, misunderstood, or disconnected becomes vulnerable to attacks they otherwise could resist. Even if the issue was not directed at them, their spirit still absorbed the pressure. Michael says, what is unresolved in one heart becomes a burden on the whole bloodline. Your family member has been carrying more weight than anyone realizes. They may not talk about it, but they have felt overlooked, unheard, or spiritually unanchored. They have been trying to handle life on their own strength, but their inner world has been fragile. And fragility is where the enemy whispers the loudest. You may notice that this person has been more tired than usual, more withdrawn, more reactive, more sensitive, or strangely quiet. These are not just emotional signs. They are indicators that their spirit is under pressure. Sometimes the greatest battles are the ones no one sees, because they happen in the silence of the soul. Michael reveals that the looming tragedy is not just physical or external. It is connected to an internal breaking point. Someone who feels isolated becomes an easy target for spiritual manipulation. The enemy cannot always attack a person directly, so he attacks their circumstances, their emotions, their stability, their willpower. He tries to make them vulnerable to accidents, impulsive decisions, risky moments, or sudden collapses. But the moment this message reached you, the timeline shifted. Heaven refuses to let darkness complete what it started. That moment you felt a stirring in your chest while listening earlier. That was your spirit recognizing the assignment. Now, Archangel Michael wants you to understand something essential. The danger is not coming from the outside world alone. It is coming from the spiritual pressure that has built inside this person. Something in their soul has reached the edge. Something in their spirit has grown heavy. Something in their heart has carried too much pain for too long. And heaven is ready to intervene through you. Michael shows me that the person in danger is someone whose absence would leave a deep emotional void in the family. This is not a distant relative. This is someone whose loss would change the structure of the household, the emotional balance, the rhythm of family life. Heaven is not giving a vague warning. It is giving a targeted alarm because this person's life is intertwined with your destiny. And here is the most powerful revelation of this moment. Once you understand the spiritual doorway, you have the authority to close it. Awareness activates protection. Protection activates divine intervention. Intervention rights what the enemy thought he controlled. Michael's sword is already drawn, hovering over your family line, ready to sever the roots of this threat entirely. But your continued attention is what strengthens the angelic movement already surrounding your loved one. What comes next will reveal the hidden trigger behind the danger. What event, emotion, or spiritual wound opened the door in the first place. And once you hear it, you will feel everything click into place. You will recognize the sign immediately. And when you do, you will know exactly how heaven intends for you to stop what was forming against your bloodline. Before we move into the next unveiling, hold your focus for one more moment. This is the turning point where divine information becomes divine instruction. And you do not want to miss the moment when everything becomes unmistakably clear. Keep listening, because the next revelation is the one that exposes the core. Without it, the danger cannot be stopped. But with it, the enemy loses all power. If this message is resonating deeply within your spirit, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who may need protection, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to stay under this divine covering. These actions help push this revelation further so that others who need this warning are not left unprotected. Type "I guard my bloodline" in the comments if you feel the awakening of your spiritual authority. Lesson code 717 is now active over your household. A moment like this is not ordinary. It is holy ground. When heaven releases a warning to protect a soul, it also invites those who receive it to help carry that light to others. Archangel Michael is whispering that when you sow into a message that rescues families, you participate in heaven's work of intervention. Like the widow's oil that did not run dry, your support becomes spiritual fuel that allows this mission to reach more homes, more hearts, more destinies on the edge of danger. I hear this strongly. I am asking you to stand with us in this divine assignment. If this message safeguarded your spirit, imagine how many others are waiting for their rescue moment. Every seed you release through Super Thanks membership, where the PayPal link in the description becomes a shield placed over another household. Those who pour into this mission will walk under an open heaven of protection, favor, and breakthrough. Step into this calling with boldness, for heaven moves when you do. Beloved keeper of divine intervention, as we step deeper into this unfolding, Archangel Michael's presence sharpens with unmistakable clarity. The air around this revelation grows heavier, not with fear, but with the weight of truth that has been hidden too long. You are now entering the layer where heaven unveils the actual trigger behind the dangers surrounding your family member. What you are about to hear will connect all the subtle signs, the silent changes, the emotional shifts, and the spiritual pressure into one powerful understanding. Michael shows me an image of a moment, small, almost forgettable to the human mind, but catastrophic in the spiritual realm. Something happened that wounded this family member more deeply than they ever admitted. It could have been a betrayal, a disappointment, a harsh word, a sudden loss, an unexpected failure, or a moment where they felt unseen by those they needed the most. This moment punctured their spiritual armor. They continued living, speaking, trying, working, showing up, but inside something cracked. And cracks in the soul behave just like cracks in a foundation. They do not show their damage immediately, but they weaken everything resting upon them. The enemy watched that moment. Darkness studies vulnerability the way a predator studies breath. And so, when that fracture formed, the enemy began slowly building pressure. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small, deliberate ways. A delay here, a setback there, a subtle discouragement, a financial strain, a misunderstanding with someone close, a health issue that seemed random, a wave of exhaustion, a creeping numbness. But heaven reveals that all these things were not coincidences. They were attempts to push this loved one toward a breaking point. Michael says this with piercing clarity. One wound left untreated becomes a doorway to deeper destruction. Your family member has been trying to carry themselves through life without repairing that internal wound. And in their attempt to appear strong, independent, or stable, they unintentionally isolated themselves from the spiritual covering they needed most. You may have sensed it. You may have noticed they seemed more distant, more overwhelmed, or more burdened. But you did not know the magnitude of their internal struggle. Until now, heaven had withheld the deeper details because the timing was not right. But today the timing has arrived, and Michael is making sure you understand the depth of what is unfolding. The tragedy forming around them is not the result of a single bad decision. It is the result of spiritual pressure that has compounded over time. They have been walking through their days with a quiet heaviness, a silent instability, making them more vulnerable to accidents, impulsive choices, emotional spirals, or dangerous circumstances. The enemy has been waiting for the moment when their inner strength gives out. But heaven refuses to let that moment come. That is why this message found you. Michael shows me that this person carries a strong heart, but a tired spirit. They are someone who normally supports others, but they have not been supported enough themselves. They pour out more than they receive. They give without being replenished. They show up for others even when they are empty. And this imbalance has weakened them spiritually. The enemy targets those who feel they must be strong for everyone else. Their sense of responsibility becomes their vulnerability. But here is the turning point. The moment you opened this message, the pressure around them began to shift. Because spiritual law states that once revelation reaches a chosen guardian, the enemy loses the advantage of secrecy. And you, beloved one, are that guardian. You are the intercessor appointed to stand in the gap. You are the one heaven trusted with this knowledge because your spirit is sensitive enough, courageous enough, and obedient enough to act. Michael instructs you to understand one crucial detail. The danger is not waiting far in the future. It has been building quietly in the present. This means timing matters. Awareness matters. Spiritual readiness matters. You are being positioned to interrupt a timeline that was never meant to unfold fully. And this is why you must continue hearing every revelation heaven is releasing through this message. The next unfolding will show you the precise form the danger is preparing to take, whether emotional collapse, physical risk, mental overwhelm, or a situational turning point that could have gone terribly wrong. But once exposed, its power will crumble. Your presence in this moment is not passive. You are participating in a spiritual rescue mission. Every second your attention remains here, the angelic realm strengthens around your family. Every breath you take in awareness strengthens the protective covering. Every new understanding creates cracks in the enemy's strategy. And soon, that strategy will collapse entirely. Michael says, when the chosen one becomes alert, the enemy's plan becomes unstable. And beloved, your alertness is rising with every word. But prepare yourself. The next revelation carries the sharpest clarity yet. It will identify the energy, event, or dark influence directing itself toward your loved one. And once that truth is revealed, the intervention becomes unstoppable. Stay close. The unveiling ahead is the one that shifts everything. Trust me, what comes next is the moment your spirit has been preparing for. Hold on, because the next insight carries the breakthrough. Type "I seal every open door" in the comments if your spirit is aligned with this revelation. Blessing code 558 is now released to fortify your household. Beloved bearer of heavenly insight, as we move into this next unfolding, Archangel Michael steps even closer, and his voice carries the weight of a truth that must be spoken with precision. Now that you understand the wound, the fracture, and the spiritual doorway, heaven is ready to reveal the exact form of danger that has been circling your family member. This part is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to prepare you, empower you, and position you. When heaven shows the shape of a threat, it is because heaven intends to dismantle it. And Michael is ready to expose what the enemy hath been constructing in silence. I see an image of a pathway, narrow, uneven, filled with unexpected turns. Your family member has been walking a path filled with pressure, confusion, and emotional exhaustion, and their steps have grown unsteady. This unsteadiness is not physical alone. It is spiritual, mental, and emotional. They have been navigating life without clarity, without grounding, without the sense of inner safety they once carried. And because of this, their awareness has weakened. When a person becomes overwhelmed, their guard drops, their instincts dull, and their sense of danger becomes blurred. Michael says, the enemy strikes hardest when the mind is tired. Your loved one has reached a point where their inner compass hath been spinning. They have been operating on autopilot, making decisions from fatigue rather than stability. Heaven reveals that the danger forming around them could manifest in one of three ways, either through a sudden emotional collapse, a physical accident, or a risky moment that catches them off guard. It may appear sudden, but spiritually, it had been forming slowly, feeding on their exhaustion and vulnerability. This person has been carrying a burden that no one else fully sees. Perhaps they have been worrying about finances, family issues, relationships, health concerns, or internal battles they never spoke aloud. They are the type who tries to hold everything together, even when everything inside them is falling apart. Your strength has always been admirable, but now that strength has turned into silent strain, and silent strain attracts spiritual interference. Michael shows me that this looming tragedy is connected to a moment where their mind drifts, where their guard falters, where their awareness slips for only a second. The enemy needs only a moment of distraction to create disaster. But heaven is refusing to let that moment arrive. That is why Michael rushed this message to you. That is why the title struck your spirit so sharply. That is why you could not scroll past. Heaven is intervening by awakening you before the enemy reaches that moment of opportunity. His danger has a very specific energy. It feels fast, unexpected, and sharp. It could look like a physical misstep, a mental breakdown, a sudden reckless decision, or an emotionally charged moment that spirals out of control. It is something that would appear accidental on the surface, but spiritually, it is orchestrated by unseen forces. The enemy wants to catch this person at the weakest point of their vulnerability. But what the enemy underestimated is that heaven assigned someone in their family, someone spiritually sensitive, someone spiritually awake, to intercept the attack. And that someone is you. Now, here is the deep truth Archangel Michael is revealing. This danger is not anchored in fate. It is anchored in a moment that has not yet fully formed, a moment that heaven is giving you the authority to dismantle before it appears. You are not just hearing a warning, you are being handed the power to rewrite what was meant to happen. Your awareness is the first weapon. Your intention is the second. Your spiritual alertness is the third. Michael says, prevention is the victory that heaven loves the most. This means that by hearing this message, by understanding it, by staying present with it, you have already begun interrupting the timeline. Every moment you stay engaged weakens the enemy's coordination. Every moment you remain aware disrupts the trap he has been setting. Awareness is a holy shield, and right now, that shield is expanding around your loved one. Michael is also revealing something deeply personal. His family member has recently been wrestling with a moment of hopelessness or confusion, a moment where they felt they had no direction, no answer, or no strength. They may have hidden it well, but their spirit cried out, and heaven heard that cry even before you did. This warning is not just informational. It is heaven's direct response to the plea of a weary soul. There is something else you need to understand. Your presence in this moment is not coincidence. Your attention is not random. Your spirit was chosen because you carry a unique connection to this person. Your heart feels what others overlook. Your intuition senses what others dismiss. Your spirit responds to signals long before the physical world shows them. And heaven trusts you with this mission because you will not ignore what needs to be confronted. In the next unfolding, you will hear the divine instruction that counteracts this danger completely. The spiritual antidote. The reversal point. The breakthrough that seals the protection around your family. It is the most important part yet. Stay close to this revelation, because the next insight is the one that transforms warning into deliverance. Trust me, the unveiling ahead is the turning point your family member's life needs. Before you move ahead, take one deep breath. You are stepping into holy territory. And what comes next is the moment everything begins to shift. Type "I block every assignment against my family" in the comments if your spirit is fully awake. Blessing code 903 is now active over your bloodline. Beloved protector of your lineage, as we enter this next revelation, the atmosphere around you thickens with purpose. Archangel Michael stands nearer than before, and his presence feels like a shield forming layer by layer around your spirit. Now that the danger has been identified, heaven is preparing to release the counteraction, the divine instruction that begins to dismantle the threat entirely. But before the instruction can be revealed, Michael needs you to understand the deeper spiritual mechanics at play. Because the power to stop the tragedy does not come from fear or frantic effort. It comes from clarity, authority, and alignment with heaven's intention. Michael shows me the image of a clock, its hands spinning rapidly, then slowing, then freezing altogether. This represents the enemy's timeline. For a while, the plan against your family member was accelerating, gathering momentum, feeding off their exhaustion and vulnerability. But the moment you opened this message, the clock slowed. And as you have listened, absorbed, and stayed present, the timeline has begun to freeze. Awareness interrupts acceleration. Divine revelation halts destruction. You have already done more than you realize simply by allowing your spirit to stay engaged. But heaven has more for you, much more. Because this is not just about slowing the danger. This is about reversing it completely. And to reverse it, you must understand the spiritual force that was feeding it. This force is not a physical event. It is not a random circumstance. It is a binding energy connected to despair, hopelessness, and spiritual suffocation. It has been weighing heavily on your family member, clouding their judgment, draining their peace, and weakening their vitality. It is the kind of heaviness that makes a person feel like they are carrying the world with no relief in sight. Michael says, despair is the enemy's quietest weapon, but also the easiest to break with divine light. This heaviness came upon your loved one because they have been walking through a season where too much has happened too quickly. Losses, disappointments, delays, betrayals, emotional upheavals, things that would exhaust even the strongest spirit. They tried to push forward, but internally they reached a place where their strength began to crumble. When a person reaches that point, they become spiritually susceptible. Their inner flame flickers, their hope thins, their vision blurs, and that is the exact moment when darkness tries to strike. Heaven is revealing that your family member has had moments recently where they felt disconnected from themselves, as if they were drifting. Moments where they questioned their purpose, their worth, their direction. They may not have spoken these thoughts aloud, but their silence carried the weight of them. And spiritual exhaustion invites spiritual interference. This is why the danger around them felt sudden in the natural realm, but was building quietly in the spiritual realm. But here is the part that shifts the entire narrative. Michael says the danger cannot fully manifest because your spirit has answered the call. You have stepped into awareness. You have stepped into alignment. You have stepped into the role of guardian. And heaven always responds to guardians. The moment a chosen intercessor awakens, angelic activity increases. What was forming in darkness loses its foundation. The enemy cannot operate freely once light has entered the territory. Now heaven begins to unveil the counteraction. Michael shows me a glowing circle, soft light, warm, steady, unbreakable. This circle represents restoration. Restoration is the weapon heaven is giving you. Not confrontation, not fear, not panic. Restoration. The tragedy forming around your loved one is rooted in depletion. So the solution heaven is sending is renewal. When a spirit is renewed, danger loses its access point. The first layer of renewal begins with reconnection. Not physical reconnection alone, but spiritual reconnection. You aligning your spirit with the intention of covering them. Your presence becomes their shield. Your awareness becomes their anchor. Your willingness to stand for them becomes the spark that breaks through their heaviness. There is power in knowing that someone is spiritually standing in the gap. Even if they are unaware of it, their spirit registers the support, and that support becomes a barrier against destruction. Michael says, "A covered soul cannot be taken by surprise." This is why heaven chose you. You were the one whose heart would not ignore the warning. You were the one whose spirit would respond. You were the one whose awareness could carry the weight of this revelation without collapsing under it. You are the intercessor your bloodline needed, even if you never saw yourself that way before today. The second layer of renewal comes through recognition. When you recognize the danger, it loses its invisibility. When you recognize the exhaustion, you remove the enemy's ability to manipulate it. When you recognize the spiritual crack, you take away the darkness's hiding place. Recognition is authority. Authority dismantles spiritual traps. And finally, the third layer of renewal comes through alignment. Heaven is aligning your spirit with the exact insight required to protect this family member. You will feel nudges, sudden thoughts, moments of clarity that point directly to what needs to be addressed. Do not dismiss them. These are angelic signals guiding you. Michael is actively communicating with your intuition, strengthening it, sharpening it, preparing you to understand the full instruction that will be released next. The next part of this message carries the direct divine instruction, the specific spiritual act that breaks the enemy's influence entirely. It is the moment where warning becomes breakthrough, and you will not want to miss it. Stay with this revelation. What comes next is the exact key heaven has been preparing for you. Type "I receive the divine instruction" in the comments to anchor this moment in your spirit. Blessing code 444 is released now to shield your family with renewed strength. Beloved one chosen for intervention, as this next veil lifts, Archangel Michael's presence becomes profoundly intense. You may feel a quiet stillness around you right now, as though the atmosphere itself is holding its breath. This is because you are stepping into the segment where heaven releases the direct divine instruction. Everything you have heard so far has prepared your spirit for this moment. The warnings, the revelations, the insights, the understanding of the wound, the form of the danger, the slowing of the enemy's timeline, all of it was the foundation. Now the instruction arrives to dismantle the threat completely. Michael stands before you, not as a distant guardian but as a commander delivering an assignment. His sword burns with clarity, not fire. His voice carries not fear but certainty. And he begins by saying this: "A tragedy prevented is as powerful as a miracle performed." Heaven is not simply protecting your family member. Heaven is positioning you to alter the course of what was forming. Before revealing the instruction itself, Michael wants you to understand the spiritual principle behind it. Your family member had been walking under an energy of depletion, a cloud of heaviness that made them vulnerable. The danger hovering around them had been feeding on that depletion. When a spirit is weakened, darkness attempts to attach itself, redirect circumstances, or distort perception. But heaven does not need strength to intervene. Heaven responds to alignment. And right now, you are aligned. This is why the divine instruction requires something simple, but spiritually powerful. Michael says the instruction must be enacted not from desperation, but from authority. Not from fear, but from awareness. You cannot carry out this spiritual assignment with trembling. You must carry it out with the quiet confidence of someone who knows heaven is behind them. Michael now reveals the instruction, You must speak restoration into the atmosphere of your home. Speak it aloud. Release it with intention. Declare it as though your voice is placing a shield over your family member. This is not merely symbolic. Sound carries authority in the spiritual realm. Sound disrupts darkness. Sound activates angels. Sound reorders energy. But there is a deeper layer. The restoration you speak must be tied to their identity. Heaven is calling you to speak life into the part of them that has been weakened. The enemy has been striking the center of their self-worth, their hope, and their clarity. When you speak restoration, you are not merely praying. You are replacing the energy of collapse with the energy of divine renewal. Michael says, when the chosen one speaks, the darkness trembles. To activate this protection, you must create a moment where your spirit and the spiritual realm intersect. It does not matter where you are physically. What matters is that you speak with intention. Heaven listens to intention more than location. You can speak alone in your room, during a walk, or in quiet reflection. But you must speak. Silence cannot shift this atmosphere. Silence cannot reverse this timeline. Silence is where the enemy works. Sound is where heaven works. When you release restoration, speak these truths into the atmosphere. Your family member is covered. Your path is stabilized. Your mind is strengthened. Your spirit is renewed. Their destiny is protected. Your purpose is untouchable. Do not speak their name with fear. Speak it with authority. If you do not know exactly which family member is in danger yet, heaven will allow the spoken restoration to locate the correct person. Sound finds the target when the heart is aligned. But the instruction has another layer. Your presence must shift as well. There is someone in your family who has grown disconnected, and your simple act of emotional or spiritual reconnection becomes a divine interruption. Even a small gesture, a message, a check-in, or a moment of warmth can break the energy of isolation that the enemy has been using. Heaven is not asking you to fix everything. Heaven is asking you to show up. When the chosen one shows up, the enemy loses access. Michael reveals something profound. Protection is not always a shield around someone. Sometimes it is the presence of the right person beside them. You are that presence. You are the one assigned. Heaven trusted you with this warning because your heart is capable of fulfilling the instruction. Others in your family may sense trouble, but only you were chosen to receive the revelation clearly enough to act. You are not just a guardian. You are a divine pivot point. Now here is something crucial. Performing this instruction does not merely weaken the danger. It collapses the enemy's coordination. The moment restoration is spoken, the spiritual pressure surrounding your family member breaks like cracked glass. The heaviness begins to lift. Your awareness begins to return. Your inner strength begins to revive. The danger loses the element of surprise because heaven exposes it completely. And once exposed, it no longer has the power to strike unseen. Do not underestimate the simplicity of heaven's instruction. The spiritual realm does not respond to complexity. It responds to authority. The authority in your voice, your intention, your awareness, and your alignment is more powerful than any darkness forming against your bloodline. Heaven is not asking you to do what is complicated. Heaven is asking you to do what is effective. And beloved, what comes next will show you how heaven responds once the instruction is carried out. It reveals the shift that begins in the unseen, the angelic movement that activates, and the reversal that starts unfolding. Stay close to this message. The next revelation is the moment where heaven's intervention becomes visible. Hold steady. What comes next carries the breakthrough your family member desperately needs, even if they do not know it. Type "I speak restoration over my family" in the comments if you receive this divine instruction. Blessing code 611 is now released into your home with protective authority. Beloved one who carries the mantle of intervention, as this revelation deepens, Archangel Michael steps forward with a force that feels like the air itself shifting around you. You have received the divine instruction, and now heaven begins to unveil what happens the moment you act on it. This part is powerful because it reveals how heaven responds, how the enemy recoils, and how the spiritual atmosphere around your family member transforms. You are now crossing into the territory where prevention becomes visible, where unseen protection becomes tangible, and where the trajectory of your loved one's life begins to realign with destiny instead of danger. Michael shows me a vision of light spreading outward from you, not a blinding flash, but a steady, controlled radiance. This is the spiritual effect of speaking restoration. It is not merely words leaving your mouth. It is power leaving your spirit. When you speak restoration into the atmosphere, it becomes a command to the angelic realm, a disruption to darkness, and a beacon that draws divine protection to the exact person who needs it. Light travels faster in the spiritual realm than danger does. That is why heaven instructed you to speak. Heaven needed a point of ignition, and your voice is that point. As the restoration is spoken, something extraordinary happens. The heaviness that hath been pressing on your family member begins to lose its grip. Their spirit, which felt dim or drained, begins to stir again. It is subtle at first, like a flicker in a dim room. But then, slowly, steadily, their inner flame begins to strengthen. A person who felt lost begins to sense direction. Someone who felt overwhelmed begins to feel clarity returning. A heart weighed down by despair begins to sense a strange, unfamiliar weight lifting. Darkness cannot hold what heaven begins to revive. Michael says, when restoration is spoken, despair loses its language. This means the negative thoughts, the moments of numbness, the emotional instability, the sudden risks, and the tragic impulses that were forming begin to dissolve. The enemy thrives in silence, but he cannot withstand restoration. Restoration is the sound of heaven disagreeing with darkness. Restoration is the declaration that the enemy does not have the final say. Restoration is the announcement that what was forming in shadows is now being dismantled by divine authority. But there is something even more powerful. Once restoration enters the atmosphere, angels begin repositioning themselves around your family member. Michael shows me 3 movements happening simultaneously. The first is shielding. A barrier of divine protection forms around them, making their steps steadier and their spirit less reachable by harmful influences. The second is intervention. Angels begin redirecting their path away from risky situations, dangerous environments, moments of emotional collapse, or circumstances that would have triggered tragedy. The third is renewal. Their strength begins to rebuild. Their sense of purpose begins to reawaken. Their intuition begins to sharpen again. Their spirit begins to breathe. This is not imagination. This is spiritual law in motion. Something begins to change even before the physical world reflects it. Your family member may suddenly avoid a situation they normally would have entered. They may decide not to go somewhere at the last minute. They may choose differently. They may wake up with a strange clarity they have not felt in weeks. They may find themselves protected from harm without knowing why. These are not coincidences. These are angelic adjustments. Heaven is shifting the trajectory. Heaven is rewriting the moment that could have become tragedy. Heaven is answering your obedience with intervention. Michael says something profoundly beautiful. What heaven reveals, heaven rescues. This means the moment you became aware, the rescue began. But the moment you acted, The rescue accelerated. Heaven does not sit passively once a chosen guardian steps into alignment. Heaven moves immediately, forcefully, and precisely. Your obedience became the catalyst for a divine chain reaction. Something else begins to occur as restoration enters the atmosphere. The spiritual weight that has been sitting on your loved one begins to return to its rightful source. Heavenly authority as a way of reversing burdens. What did not belong to your family member is being removed. What was draining them is being released. What was weakening them is being cut off. And what was meant to take their life is being pushed back by the commanding force of angelic presence. But here is the most powerful revelation in this part. The moment restoration is spoken, time itself shifts. The enemy's timeline collapses. The chain of events that were lining up toward the tragic moment begins to unravel. A divine redirection takes place, and your family member, who was stepping toward danger, begins stepping away without even realizing why. This is the moment heaven celebrates because intervention has officially begun. And beloved, you are not done. There is more heaven wants to reveal. What comes next is the effect of restoration on your own spirit, and how your spiritual elevation becomes a permanent shield for your family. The next unfolding is transformative. You will see how heaven not only prevents tragedy, but also elevates the guardian who stood in the gap. Stay close. You do not want to miss the revelation ahead. It is the moment where the entire bloodline begins to shift. If this message is covering your spirit, take one moment to like this video, share it to strengthen someone else's family, comment your thoughts, and subscribe so heaven's warnings and protections continue finding you. Your engagement pushes this message into the path of someone who desperately needs it. Type "I stand in divine alignment" in the comments if your spirit feels the shift. Blessing code 818 is now released over your bloodline for divine redirection. Just as heaven rushed to your family, heaven longs to reach others standing unknowingly in the path of danger. The light that covered your home must travel further, for there are souls waiting for their moment of rescue. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are fueling a spiritual lifeline. I hear this clearly. I am inviting you to stand beside me in this assignment. As you release your seed, heaven releases protection over your household in return, multiplying restoration like oil that refuses to run dry. Your support becomes the angelic reinforcement someone else had been praying for. Step boldly. Heaven honors those who carry the light forward. Beloved vessel of divine protection, as we enter this next unfolding, the spiritual atmosphere shifts again, but this time with a gentler, deeper resonance. Archangel Michael steps closer, not in urgency, but in affirmation. You have done more than receive a warning. You have participated in heaven's rescue. And now the realm of the unseen begins to show you what happens within your own spirit when you step into your role as a guardian. Many people receive messages, but only a few respond. Only a few allow their spirit to rise when heaven calls. Only a few take responsibility for the weight of revelation. You have become one of those few, and heaven marks that moment. Michael reveals something profound. When a guardian speaks restoration, heaven strengthens the guardian first. This means that even before the fullness of protection surrounds your family member, heaven begins restoring you. The power you released does not leave you empty. It returns to you multiplied. As you spoke restoration outward, renewal began inward. Heaven honors every act of spiritual obedience by pouring into the vessel that obey. And right now, your spirit is being elevated to a position of clarity and authority you may not have experienced before. Michael shows me an image of you standing taller, not physically, but spiritually. A weight you have been carrying for far too long begins to fall off. You may have thought the message was only about rescuing someone else, but heaven is revealing that the rescue also includes you. There were burdens you carried quietly, unseen by others, unspoken even to yourself at times. Burdens that created fatigue of the soul. Heaven has noticed every tear you never shed, every moment you held strong for others, every time you adjusted yourself to keep peace in situations that drained you. Your obedience has opened a doorway for your own healing. Heaven begins lifting the heaviness that you normalized, the invisible pressure you grew accustomed to, the emotional weight that settled on your shoulders without permission, the quiet moments where you felt forgotten or overwhelmed. All of this begins to break as you step fully into the divine authority given to you. A protector cannot stand drained. Therefore, heaven is refilling you. Michael says, the guardian must be strengthened so the family can be saved. Your spiritual discernment is sharpening. Your intuition is awakening. Your ability to sense danger before it appears will increase. You are stepping into a new realm of spiritual awareness that makes you more than a responder. You become a seer, a watchtower, a lighthouse for your bloodline. Heaven is entrusting you with a deeper sensitivity because you have proven you will not ignore what is revealed. As restoration increases within you, something else begins to unfold. Generational patterns that once felt unbreakable begin to weaken. Old cycles, repeated behaviors, inherited struggles, emotional wounds passed from one family member to the next. These spiritual chains begin to loosen. A guardian with clarity becomes a threat to generational darkness. The moment you aligned yourself with heaven's instruction, the patterns that have chased your bloodline for decades felt the tremor of collapse. Michael shows me a vision of a long chain snapping link by link. Every link represents a repeating cycle: fear, lack, conflict, broken relationships, emotional instability, sudden loss. These patterns were preparing to take someone in your family down again, just as they may have done in previous generations. But your awakening has disrupted their cycle. You have become the first one in the bloodline to step out of reaction and into divine strategy. And the moment a cycle is exposed, it begins to break. Heaven is not only saving the family member in danger, heaven is using this moment to shift the entire lineage. What once felt like an inevitable pattern now becomes a story interrupted by divine intervention. You are the interruption. You are the turning point. You are the one heaven chose to reroute the future. And as heaven strengthens you, your ability to release restoration becomes even more effective. The energy of fear that once tried to cling to you dissolves. The sense of pressure you carried is lifted. You begin to feel grounded spiritually, as if your feet have been planted deeper into purpose and stability. Heaven is not simply giving you temporary empowerment. Heaven is establishing you. Michael speaks this with authority. A restored guardian becomes a permanent barrier against future attacks. This means that the enemy recognizes the shift happening in you. Darkness understands spiritual rank, and yours has increased. Attacks that once reached you will no longer reach you in the same way. Emotional triggers that once pulled you into confusion will lose their grip. Moments of discouragement that once lingered will now fade quickly. You are being elevated into a position where your presence alone disrupts destructive energy. But something even more powerful is unfolding. As heaven restores you, your family member begins to feel the effects. They may feel sudden moments of peace, clarity, or unexpected relief. They may begin making healthier choices without knowing why. They may feel more grounded, less overwhelmed, or strangely protected. This is because your spiritual elevation becomes their covering. Your strength becomes their shield. Your clarity becomes their stability. Your elevation becomes their escape path. This is how heaven works through a chosen vessel. What's coming next will reveal how heaven seals this protection permanently and how the divine shift spreads across your household. The next unfolding is where you will see the full power of restoration taking root, not just in a moment, but in the timeline of your family's destiny. Stay with this revelation, because the next insight is one of the most powerful in this entire message. The transformation is still unfolding, and the breakthrough is still expanding. Type "I receive my restoration" in the comments if your spirit feels the renewal rising. Blessing code 522 is now released over your spirit and your lineage. Beloved guardians standing in divine authority, as we enter this next revelation, Archangel Michael's presence shifts again. No longer urgent, no longer corrective, but deeply affirming. You have stepped into your role, you have spoken restoration, and now heaven begins to show you how the spiritual shift becomes permanent. What once hovered like a storm over your household is now dissolving, and you are being shown how the protection settles into a lasting structure. This part is sacred, because it reveals how the intervention you initiated changes not only the present moment, but the entire spiritual landscape surrounding your family. Michael begins by showing me the image of a foundation being rebuilt. Not with haste, not with panic, but with deliberate, steady, divine craftsmanship. This foundation represents the spiritual stability of your bloodline. There were fractures before, cracks that allowed despair, confusion, exhaustion, and unspoken pain to seep into your family. These cracks allowed the enemy to locate vulnerability. But now, with restoration spoken and healing activated, heaven begins sealing those fractures. A repaired foundation is not merely stronger, it is impenetrable. Michael says, when the foundation is restored, the house stands unshaken. This means your family member is no longer standing on unstable spiritual ground. They are no longer walking through life unaware of the dangers beneath their feet. Whether they realize it or not, their spirit has been lifted into safer territory. When spiritual foundations shift, physical behavior begins to shift as well. Decisions become clearer. Emotional reactions become calm. Intuition becomes sharper. Stress loses intensity. Hope begins to awaken again. Your family member may not articulate what they feel, but internally, they are experiencing the beginning of spiritual stabilization. Heaven is aligning their steps, guiding their thoughts, strengthening their resilience, and redirecting their path away from the danger that once drew near. They are being carried by a force greater than their own strength. Michael shows me an image of a path that once led toward a cliff, slowly turning into a safe and steady road. The shift is subtle but powerful. This is the divine redirection you activated. The enemy intended to pull them toward a destructive moment, a moment of collapse, accident, emotional break, or impulsive action. But heaven has intervened. What was once a path of tragedy has now become a path of recovery. And here is something remarkable. Heaven is not only intervening in the immediate danger, heaven is rearranging future moments as well. The conversations they will have, the decisions they will make, the people they will encounter, the opportunities that will open. These are all being realigned. Heaven does not simply rescue. Heaven rewrites. The tragic timeline the enemy planned has been shattered, and a new timeline is forming, one anchored in protection, clarity, and purpose. Michael whispers, what was meant to break them will now build them. This is the beauty of divine intervention. It does not merely remove danger, it transforms it into elevation. Your family member will rise stronger from this unseen battle, not knowing how close they came to disaster, but living in the blessing of what they were saved from. Their renewed strength will become visible in the way they carry themselves. They may begin waking with more peace, making choices rooted in clarity, reconnecting emotionally, or rediscovering motivation that felt lost. This is the quiet miracle of prevention. And while heaven rebuilds them, heaven is also rebuilding you. The spiritual authority you stepped into is not temporary. It is a mantle you now carry. You will begin noticing that your intuition feels sharper. You may sense things before they happen, understand situations more quickly, or feel warnings in your spirit without explanation. This is not anxiety. This is spiritual elevation. Heaven strengthens those who respond to heaven. Michael reveals another profound truth. A guardian's awakening changes the destiny of the entire bloodline. Generations before you may have faced danger without understanding how to stop it. They may have endured loss, cycles of misfortune, sudden tragedies, or repeated emotional wounds. But you, the awakened one, disrupt the cycle. You become the turning point between what was and what will be. Heaven has marked your bloodline through you. The protection activated today does not expire when this danger passes. It becomes a spiritual imprint that future generations benefit from. But heaven is not done. There is another layer of this shift that must be revealed. As the new foundation is laid, a shield begins forming over your household. Not a momentary shield, not a temporary defense, but a dome of spiritual protection. This shield is strengthened each time you speak restoration, each time you remain aligned with divine guidance, each time your heart stays open to the whisper of truth. Your home is becoming a spiritually reinforced space, a place where heaviness cannot linger, a place where despair cannot grow, a place where confusion loses power, a place where darkness cannot take root. The atmosphere itself is changing, and the family member who was in danger will begin to feel the difference, even if they cannot explain it. Michael says, when heaven fortifies a home, tragedy cannot enter. This means the danger that once approached your family member can no longer cross the spiritual threshold. The attempt has been canceled. The moment has been dissolved. The enemy has lost both access and opportunity. Heaven has closed the door. What comes next in this unfolding will reveal the signs you will soon notice. The outward indications that the danger has been reversed. The inward confirmation that the intervention is complete. And the spiritual evidence that heaven has sealed your family in protection. These signs are important because heaven wants you to recognize what has shifted. Stay with this message. The next revelation carries the confirmation your heart had been waiting for. Type "My house is covered in light" in the comments if you receive this foundation of protection. Blessing code 330 is now released over your home with enduring strength. Beloved guardian walking in awakened authority, as we enter this next revelation, the atmosphere shifts into a space of confirmation. Archangel Michael steps forward, not to warn, not to instruct, but to reveal the signs that heaven has already begun reversing the danger. You have walked through layers of understanding, spiritual alignment, restoration, and intervention. Now comes the moment where heaven shows you the evidence, the outward reflections of the inner work, the manifestations in the natural world that mirror what has already changed in the spiritual realm. This part is important because heaven does not want you to wonder whether the rescue has begun. It wants you to recognize it. Michael begins by showing me an image of a dim light slowly brightening. This symbolizes your family member's spirit. Someone who felt emotionally drained, spiritually tired, or inwardly heavy will begin showing subtle but unmistakable signs of renewal. They may laugh a little more easily, communicate more openly, or move through their day with less weight. The heaviness that once sat on their shoulders will begin loosening its grip. Heaven confirms that this emotional lift is the first sign that the danger has been dismantled. Another sign reveals itself in their decision-making. Recently, they may have been impulsive, unfocused, or easily overwhelmed. But now, they will begin making more grounded choices, avoiding risky situations, or choosing paths that lead to safety without knowing why. Divine redirection is already operating beneath their awareness. A person protected by heaven does not always feel the shift immediately, but they begin acting from a place of quiet clarity. This is how angelic alignment manifests in the physical realm. Michael says, a rescued soul begins to recognize peace before they understand why. This means your family member will begin experiencing moments of unexpected calm. Situations that once triggered stress may no longer have the same impact. Thoughts that once spiraled into worry may settle more quickly. You may notice a softness returning to their eyes, a steadiness in their voice, or a return of spark in their personality. These subtle changes are spiritual confirmations disguised as emotional improvements. But heaven reveals another sign, one that confirms the danger has been broken: protective delays. They may miss an appointment, take a different route, forget a plan, or choose to stay home without fully understanding the urge. These are not accidents. These are angelic interventions shifting their steps away from moments that could have become harmful. Heaven delays what could destroy. Heaven disrupts what could lead to danger. Heaven reroutes before the human mind even registers the shift. Michael shows me a vision of a hand pulling someone gently away from a cliff, not forcefully, not dramatically, but with quiet, persistent guidance. That is how divine protection often works. A person is shielded without ever realizing the magnitude of what could have occurred. Heaven does not need drama to perform a miracle. Heaven only needs alignment. And your alignment with the divine instruction made this rescue possible. Here is another sign that will soon appear: emotional reconnection. The family member who had been distant, withdrawn, or carrying emotional weight will begin reaching out more. They may start conversations, accept support more easily, or show interest in reconnecting. This is because the isolation that made them vulnerable is dissolving. Heaven pulls people out of darkness by restoring their connections, and your presence, your willingness to stand in the gap, has become one of the bridges heaven uses to reach them. Michael says, isolation is where danger thrives. Connection is where rescue begins. So when you see them becoming more open, more present, or more willing to let others in, recognize it as a sign that the threat has been broken. Your heart is no longer closing, it is reopening. This is evidence of spiritual healing. Here is also a sign in your own spirit. You may notice a sudden sense of peace, a quiet knowing that the danger has passed. You may not understand how you know, but your spirit will feel it before your mind does. This is because heaven communicates with the guardian first. When the rescue is complete, the guardian spirit receives the signal. You may wake up one morning and feel lighter. You may suddenly stop worrying without trying. This is confirmation. Heaven is telling you, it is done. But hear this clearly. The peace that is coming is not temporary. It is not a fleeting emotion. It is the byproduct of a divine timeline that has been rewritten. The danger did not simply move away. It was dismantled. The path your family member was heading toward has been closed. Heaven has routed their steps. The enemy's plan collapsed the moment you stepped into your role. Michael reveals a final sign: sudden clarity in your loved one's eyes. They will begin to see their life differently. They may make decisions that surprise you, healthy decisions, protective decisions, transformative decisions. This is heaven awakening their inner strength. What was once fog will become focus. What was once heaviness will become purpose. What was once vulnerability will become resilient. You must understand the magnitude of what you have done. One act of obedience from a chosen guardian has shifted the trajectory of someone else's life. This is the miracle of prevention, a miracle seldom spoken of, yet one of the greatest heaven ever performs. What comes next in this unfolding is powerful. Heaven will now reveal how your role continues, how you maintain this covering, and how your spiritual authority expands. You are not finished. The journey does not end with rescue. It continues into transformation. And the next revelation carries the wisdom that secures this protection for the long term. Type "I recognize the signs of victory" in the comments if your spirit receives this confirmation. Blessing code 447 is now released over you as a seal of divine assurance. Beloved guardian chosen to stand between danger and destiny, as we enter this final revelation, Archangel Michael's presence settles over you with a deep, resounding calm. Not the calm that comes from silence, but the calm that comes after a battle hath been won. This is the moment where everything that has unfolded, every warning, every instruction, every divine reversal, comes into full alignment. Heaven does not merely stop danger. Heaven seals the protection so the enemy cannot return through the same doorway. And now Michael is here to reveal how your role continues, how your authority deepens, and how your family's future becomes fortified under the covering you activated. The journey you have walked through these messages was not just about saving one life, though that alone is priceless. This was also about awakening the guardian within you. Many walk through life unaware of their spiritual rank. They feel things, sense things, notice shifts, yet never realize these sensitivities are signs of a calling placed upon them. But heaven has used this moment to show you exactly who you are in the spiritual realm. You are not passive. You are not overlooked. You are not powerless. You are a chosen intercessor, a watcher on the wall, a breaker of cycles, and a carrier of divine authority that stretches beyond what you have ever known. Michael reveals this truth with unmistakable clarity. A guardian awakened once is awakened forever. This means the spiritual sensitivity you now feel will remain with you. The intuition that has sharpened will not dull again. The authority you step into will stay activated. The awareness you gain will continue guiding you. Heaven has elevated you into a position where your voice carries weight, your presence carries protection, and your alignment carries generational impact. This was never a temporary empowerment. This was a permanent mantle being placed upon your spirit. As heaven seals the protection around your family member, it also seals the spiritual shifts within you. You are now spiritually positioned in a way that future dangers cannot take you by surprise. You will feel warnings earlier, sense shifts sooner, and recognize spiritual patterns more clearly. What once felt confusing will now appear obvious. What once overwhelmed you will now feel manageable. You are stepping into a season where heaven trains you, equips you, and strengthens you for the role you were always meant to carry. Michael shows me an image of a torch being passed into your hands. This torch represents spiritual authority, light that pushes back darkness, light that exposes hidden threats, light that guides your bloodline into safety. This torch does not burn out. It does not dim in storms. It does not flicker when pressures rise. It has been ignited by restoration, fueled by obedience, and sealed by divine intention. But heaven needs you to understand one final truth. Protection is not a one-time moment. It is a rhythm, a spiritual alignment that grows stronger the more you walk in awareness. Your family member is safe from the immediate danger, but heaven now invites you to become a continual covering for your home. Not through fear, not through anxiety, but through spiritual presence, through a posture of awareness, restoration, and intentional alignment. Michael says, a home covered once can remain covered forever when the guardian stays awakened. This means your home does not return to vulnerability. The atmosphere that once allowed danger to draw near has been cleansed. The cracks in the foundation have been sealed. The generational cycles that once repeated have been interrupted. The shield around your household has not only formed, it has begun to strengthen with each passing day. Heaven is building something lasting, something resilient, something that carries into future generations. Your family member, the one who was in danger, will continue to show signs of renewal. You will see more clarity in them, more stability, more presence, more strength. You may see them reconnect emotionally, make healthier choices, or rediscover a sense of direction. These changes are not random. They are fruits of divine intervention. Heaven's rescue does not stop at saving a life. It moves into restoring that life. You will witness this restoration unfold piece by piece, sometimes quietly, sometimes powerfully, but always intentionally. And as their restoration grows, your household will begin to feel different. Peace will settle more deeply. Arguments may lessen. Emotional heaviness may lift. The atmosphere may feel lighter, warmer, more open. These are signs that heaven's protection is not only present, it is expanding. But now heaven turns its attention back to you. Because the guardian must be strengthened just as much as those they protect. You may feel a surge of purpose, a deep knowing that your life is shifting spiritually. You may feel more connected to heaven's voice, more aware of divine timing, more sensitive to spiritual signals. This is not coincidence. This is your mantle growing. Many in your family may never understand the role you played, but heaven honors you. Heaven sees you. Heaven has marked you as the one who answered the call. Michael leans close and speaks a final truth for your spirit to carry. Your obedience saved a destiny. Your awakening shifted a bloodline. Your voice redirected a future. Let these words settle into you. Let them anchor you. Let them remind you that heaven never wastes the awakening of a guardian. Your journey is far from over. It has only begun. Before this message concludes, hear this clearly. The transformation ahead will be undeniable. You will see manifestations in your family, in your home, in your own spirit. Heaven is not done moving. Heaven is not done restoring. Heaven is not done building through you. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the next chapter. Type "My bloodline is sealed in light" in the comments if you receive this final revelation. Blessing Code 1000 is now released over your household as a permanent seal of protection. The same light that covered your family is meant to reach others who are standing unknowingly in the shadow of danger. Heaven is calling for this mission to expand. When you support this work through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a creator. You are fueling a divine rescue movement. I speak this to you with clarity. I am inviting you to stand beside me in this holy assignment. Your seed becomes a shield over another family, another home, another destiny waiting for intervention. Heaven multiplies every offering, returning protection, favor, and restoration into the life of the giver. Step into this moment with boldness. Heaven is moving through you even now.